how can we create an environment where you can get your power needs met without depriving me of mine? Now, I want to take us down the middle here, because on one extreme, we're being very permissive. We're, okay, forget it, do what you want. How many of you know, how many of you have kids whose parents how many of you have kids whose friends have parents who have just said, forget it, I can't control you, do whatever you want? They've gone to the other extreme now, where that child has no limits. There is no sense of consequence. There is no sense of connection. Do what you want, I can't control you, because I have to make a choice between I'm either controlling you or you're controlling me. There is an alternative. The alternative is called win-win, and we don't have many models for win-win in our culture. Win-win says, I'm still the parent, I'm still the authority, I'm still the teacher, I'm still the mommy, I'm still the daddy, I'm still whatever, I'm still the boss. But within these limits that I set, I'm going to give you an opportunity to experience a sense of power. Win-win asks the question, how do we both get what we want? Win-win is still an authority relationship. You're still the boss. And one of the hardest selling points for this argument of creating a win-win home environment is just realizing that you are still in charge, you're still the boss. But instead of using your power to take power away from your kids or controlling them, now we're using our power to set limits within which you can have certain choices. We're using our power to help you decide how you can get your needs met within these limits, rather than using our power to take your power away. Because that's where we get into these power struggles. And to be honest with you, you may win the battle. In the long run, you'll lose the war. And look at the amount of stress we have in our relationships. I can't tell you how many parents I've worked with in the past 20, 25 years or so who come to me and say, you know, I'm going to bed with migraines, I'm grinding my teeth down to my gums over something silly like, you know, the baseball cap he wants to wear, or the fact that she won't clean something. This is our relationship. How are we going to make these relationships work? Because part of making them work is cooperating with one another. When we shift more to cooperation rather than powering and making kids do what we want, we have a whole different dynamic. And I'll tell you the truth, if I know that you respect my need for power, even when I don't have choices about things, I'm much more likely to honor you and do what you want. If we're not constantly fighting for this, then I'm much more likely to think, well, wait a minute, what's mom going to want? Nah, she's not going to like if I do this, so maybe I won't. Because I'm thinking in terms of both of us. If you only are thinking in terms of either I'm winning or you're winning, then you're going to end up with kids who are either going to be fighting you for control or simply complying and obedient. When I'm talking about obedient kids, though, I am talking about the kind of kids who do as they're told regardless of who's telling them. And no matter how many times we tell people, don't talk, you tell your kids, don't talk to strangers, never get in anybody's car. If we are constantly giving them this message that you're safe and worthwhile as long as you're pleasing me and pleasing other people and making everybody happy, kids have a hard time distinguishing when to just say no. You want your kids to just say no when somebody out on the street says, here, smoke this. You want your kids to just say no when somebody pressures them to get in the back seat of the car and have sex with them. You want your kids to just say no when somebody suggests they do something risky or dangerous. And yet, how often have we been raised to constantly reinforce kids for, oh, I love you when? As long as you're keeping me happy and you're making me happy, then you're going to get my approval. And a lot of us grow up with this idea that our self-worth depends upon our ability to please others. I heard a story, and it actually came out of West Texas. When I first started doing these workshops, a woman was telling me that there were 3 little girls going home from school one day. They were all three of them were 7 years old in 2nd grade. And on the way home, a man pulled up in this nice shiny car and he says, hey, your mom's called. They want me to take you home today. Get in my car. 2 of the girls got in the guy's car. One of them ran home screaming. And because she ran home, the parents called the cops. They stopped this guy before he had a chance to do any damage to anybody, thank goodness. And the cops got the 2 girls out of the guy's car and said, you don't even know this man. Why did you get in his car? And the girls looked at the police officer like he was insane and said, well, he's a grown-up. He said to. Now, if we're constantly telling kids to do as you're told, at some point it gets a little fuzzy on who to listen to. You're not always going to be there to just say no for them. And you're not going to be there to tell them when it's okay to get in somebody's car or what's okay to drink or smoke. We're not always going to be there. You know, somebody offers your kid a joint, you're not going to be there to say, I don't think so. So the issue is not that they learn how to listen and do as they're told. The issue is that they learn how to think and make decisions in their own behalf. When they asked the third little girl, the police officer went up to her and said, well, why didn't you get in his car? She said, well, my mommy and daddy taught me to think, so I thinked. Now, if your goal is control, this child's going to be a handful. But this is also the child that I'm much more likely to trust when my back is turned. Because, you notice, I don't see a lot of kids here right now. That means they're kind of all out there making decisions and thinking somewhere on their own. So I want them to be able to do that in a positive, healthy way. Now, there's a few things I can do to create the skill of decision making and to create a win-win power dynamic. One is by offering choices. Here's some tips on giving kids choices, and I suspect that most of you are doing this. You're giving your kids choices that are age appropriate. As your kids get older, they will become better able to make more complicated decisions. So for example, we want to keep all the choices positive. We want to keep the process positive, because do it or else is still a choice. And have you ever said do it or else to a kid and they still dig in their heels and say no? Now what? How high are you going to raise the stakes? I have seen parents with kids that like hate taking baths, and every time the parent would say, okay, it's time for a bath, immediately everybody's blood pressure would go up because the kid didn't want to do it, and it's like, you get in the tub now, what did I say? And we end up with this power struggle over a bath. And I remember a woman telling me one time, she said, you know what, I finally decided I can't handle the fighting. So what do most of us do? Oh, forget it, just go dirty, I can't handle it anymore. No, the alternative was, oh, guess what, it's bath time. And you know what? Today, you get to pick out your own washcloth. It's worked with a 2-year-old. Why? Because it gave her power within that situation. Nobody's saying now, do you want to take a bath? That part's not negotiable. But within the limits of bath time, you get to pick out which washcloth. You get to pick out which story I'm going to read to you while you're in the tub. You get to make choices around this. So that's how that works. Let's keep it positive. Let's set up choices where there's no wrong choice, because how many of you want you know, we always talk about we want kids to have unconditional love, right? Do you want your kids to have unconditional love? And yet, how many times do we set up situations where they have to make a certain guess to get our conditional love? I was talking about giving kids choices, and I got a call from a parent one time. The mom was very upset. She said, well, I gave him a choice for dessert. He had a choice between chocolate bars or prunes, and he picked the wrong one. Now, you know, did you just meet this kid? It's like, why would you do that? Would you know, what would you expect from me? That's a setup. It's a setup. I'm going to give you a choice of a good thing and a bad thing, and let's see if you can read my mind and people please me by picking the one I want you to pick so you can get my conditional approval. If you want the kid to eat fruit, you offer him a choice between 2 or 3 different fruits. And if he doesn't want any of those fruits, that's okay, then we'll have something different tomorrow. It's not on the menu. I want candy. I'll bet you do. Candy's wonderful. It's not on the menu. We have prunes, peaches, and apples. Do you want any of those? No. Okay. We'll have breakfast tomorrow. See, we get into this thing where we have to win. We have to win. And look at the stress it creates in our lives. If you're going to offer choices, keep them all positive. Be specific about the choices that are available. Another mom called me up and she was very upset with me. She said, I offered my kids some choice of dessert and she wanted baked Alaska. I don't even know what that is. So, you know, here's what's available. Let's be specific. Time limits. Some of you will be saying to kids like, okay, how many of you have a kid that you could say, okay, it's a little chilly out today, I want you to wear a sweater. You can wear any sweater in this drawer. How many of you have kids that will outgrow the sweaters before they pick one? Now, the older they are, you know, it's like I am convinced, especially if they go to school, because this is one thing that the schools have done, and as a teacher, I can tell you that, you know, I've been a part of this. The longer kids are in school, the dumber they get about making decisions. Those of you with little ones usually can say, which do you want to wear, the red one or the blue one? And they'll pick it out. Now, if you have a kid who's standing there and either is insecure about making a decision or isn't really sure which one he wants to wear, it is appropriate to tell the kid, okay, you've got until the big hand's on the 6, and then I get to pick. Now, here's another thing that's going to happen, and this is just, I don't know, human psychology or what. You have a kid, can't make up his mind between the red or the blue sweater. You say, all right, why don't you wear the red one? What are they going to say? I want to wear the blue. Okay, foregone conclusion. If you suggest the red, they're going to say, I want to wear the blue one. Okay, I want to give you a bunch of magic sentences today. These are sentences, they're very practical ways to talk to kids that'll diffuse the conflict and still leave you in charge. You want a magic sentence to say, now if you really don't care if they choose the red or the blue one, either one is going to keep them warm. You say, well, why don't you wear the red one? I want to wear the blue. Magic sentence. Great choice. And then walk away. What a great choice. Now, if he puts the blue one on and it's itchy, okay, then that choice didn't work. Can he change? Of course. I'm asking us to kind of step out of this, I gotta win thinking around this, because that's how most of us were raised. Giving kids choices is a great way, it's a great way to build win-win into the relationship. If you don't have the choice anymore, if the kid's still having a hard time deciding which dessert he wants, and then he says, okay, I want the prunes, and everybody ate all the prunes, that choice is no longer available. It's like, oops, that one's gone. Another magic sentence, we'll try again tomorrow. We'll try again later. Because the temptation is going to be, well, why didn't you just say that the first time I gave it to you? By the time you picked, everybody else had eaten all the prunes. Prunes went bad. That's the temptation. We don't have to do that. And it's interesting, I was doing this workshop a couple days ago up in Canada, and there was a guy in the workshop who was convinced that if we don't yell at the kids, they're not going to take us seriously. Oh no, I'm going to talk about our follow-through and how we do on the follow-through and how, something we can even pull this off. We don't even have to get angry. We don't even have to raise our voices. We don't have to get upset. We don't have to go, to cross that line. No, we don't have to add stress to this environment. That's the first skill, is giving kids choices. Now, the second way to create win-win in our relationship is to ask the kids for their suggestions. Get input from them. Well, this is the best idea I got. What do you have in mind? Now, in the adult world, we call that negotiating. But when I talk about negotiating with kids, I'll bet how many of you, I'm getting looks already, people are like raising their eyebrows and things like that, because immediately that all or nothing thinking kicks in, and we immediately assume negotiating is about giving in. Oh, no, 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 no. In fact, I can think of no better way to get a commitment from a kid and no better way to get your boundaries across than through this process of negotiating. I want to give you a couple different examples. One came up, one of the very first parent workshops I did. I was doing a workshop for parents and teachers of gifted kids. And the issue came up, it was a single mom. They're both from single moms. Sorry, dads, it's not like I'm trying to leave you out. It's just I got to go with the material I get. This woman is telling me she's got 2 teenage daughters. They live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom home. The big issue of contention is the girls' bathroom. They will not clean their bathroom. The mother is absolutely at her wit's end. She says, I go to bed angry, I wake up angry. I have gotten to the point I am constantly yelling, I am threatening, I have taken away all their privileges. I've told them they can't start dating until they're in their 40s. And they said, I don't care. Great defense, isn't it? And meanwhile, the bathroom's getting worse and worse and worse. She says, I have reduced these 2 wonderful teenage daughters from these brilliant cheerleaders, mathematicians, piano players, or whatever else they were good at. She says, every time I look at them, all I see are people who never clean bathrooms. She says, I'm at my wit's end, and I can't live with the bathrooms the way they are now. One of the women in the workshop said, well, since you're the only one who seems to be bothered by it, why don't you trade chores? And I will never forget what she said. She looked at this woman, her mouth dropped open, and she said, forget it, I'm in too deep to lose now. And turned around and walked out. Do you see? Look at the stress. We get so attached to winning that if I do this, anything that doesn't look like me making you do something is going to look like me giving in. And I remember my heart just sunk, thinking, oh, what is this poor woman going home to over a bunch of wet towels? And she called me a couple of weeks later. Yeah, it was a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later. And she said, I want you to know I did this just to prove it wasn't going to work. What happened? She says, well, I got tired of fighting about the bathroom. I got tired of being at war with these kids. I just got tired of butting heads with them. So I finally decided, you know what? This isn't worth it. And I sat down with them and I said, 100 years from now, nobody's going to remember this bathroom. This isn't that important, but it is important to me. And since I'm the only one who seems to really care about it, I'm going to go in and clean your bathroom. And of course the girls were delighted, and she says, no, wait a minute. Because see, we want to work on win-win. Win-win is about how do we both get what we want. Mom says, I'm working outside the home, I'm working inside the home, I got more than enough of my own chores. In order for this to work, I will clean your bathroom, because you know there's some chores that we just hate, and if you don't want to clean your bathroom, I need to know what you can do. Basically, what can you do for me? Which of my chores are you going to take off my hands so I'll have free time to do that? Now, I've already taught you what you need to know to clean bathrooms so that at some point in your life, you can take responsibility. You'll be in your own house. I've done my job. I've shown you how to do this. And right now, I don't want to fight over this. So I'll tell you what, I'll clean the bathroom if you take some of my chores off my hands. I said, how's it working? She says, oh, it works great. They run the vacuum every day. They're doing all the laundry, and one just volunteered to wash my car. I said, you got a deal. But how hard is it for us to even think in terms of how can we both get what we want? I remember one time, and this is now I want to lead into to the boundaries issue, about just the whole idea of being clear about what we want. And a lot of times we have an assumption in our head that, you know, how many of you have said in the past week, go clean your room? Has anybody said this to one of your kids, go clean your room? Do you have a picture in your mind of what that room's supposed to look like? Is it the same as your child's picture? No, what's their version of a clean room? Everything? Everything off the floor? A made bed? What else? You haven't seen it yet. You're still waiting for the big surprise when you get home. Yeah, some of them, like if they have a little path from the bed to the door so they can get to the bathroom without tripping. Exactly. So, you know what? Part of it is we don't tell kids what we mean by clean. We don't tell them what we mean by on time. We don't tell them what we mean by behave. So one mom, here again, how to create win-win. She made a list of 20 different things that need to be done in order for this room to be clean, and this needs to be done every week. She deliberately put very easy things on the list, things like dust your windowsills, things like can close your closet door manually. Okay, simple little things. Well, her son started crying, Mommy, that's too many. Now, you want a real, do you ever have kids that complain, this is too hard, this is too much? Another magic sentence, agree with them. Magic process. This one works with in-laws. Agree with them. I mean it. If somebody criticizes, I don't believe you let your kids dress like that. Agree with them. Say, no kidding, and then change the subject. Talk about something else. Because otherwise, you know what we do? We start defending ourselves. Well, no, she really like, you know, and it's like what we're doing there is trying to get their approval. That's our need for approval again. That's our stuff. It's not about the kid. It's not about her clothes. It's about our need to feel worthwhile by getting your approval. So the kid says, Mommy, that's too many things. Mommy looks at the list and says, 20. Yeah, you're right. You know what? 20's a lot. Tell you what, get any 18 of them done by Wednesday. I'll do any 2 you leave off the list. How's that for creative? I said, how's it working? She says, oh, it works great because he loves to stick me with the 2 yucky jobs, which was running the vacuum and changing the linens. I said, does that work for you? She said, beats doing 20. Win-win. But see, if we're stuck in this, no, I gotta hurt him enough so that he'll do what I want, then you're gonna choose all kinds of different behaviors. I wanna get around that, because we got enough kids getting hurt anyhow out there. We got enough pain and enough stress and enough strife on this planet. Let's not be part of that, have that in our, you know, this planet's not gonna get healthy till our families start getting healthy. So let's get rid of some of that conflict and stress in the families.